chapter 1, Jesus moves into our neighborhood. In chapter 2, he cleans it up. In chapter 3, he loves it. And in chapter 4, he expands its definition. Sometime in the next 4 years, each of you will be moving to a new neighborhood. It's called graduation. But sometime in the next 4 weeks, each of you will return to your current neighborhood, that is the campus. At Urbana, we talk a lot about God's calling after college, overseas service, the marketplace, the urban poor. And that's all well and good. But please don't think for a moment that you can defer being a missional Christian until after you finish school. Because if you do, I guarantee that your passion will atrophy, your vision will blur, and the fire which is so bright right now will burn low. To put it bluntly, the Lord is less concerned about the promises you are making this week than he is about your obedience right now. Do you suppose that someday he will entrust you with a mighty task if you are mission passive today? Do you suppose that someday he will tap you to lead a Bible study with the political leaders from your nation if you won't lead one on campus today? Do you suppose that someday he will send you to a Buddhist nation if you ignore the Thai student who sits in class with you today? Friends, it just doesn't work that way. Remember the parable of the 10 talents? Of the 3 servants, which one is given responsibility for 10 cities? It's the one who acts in the present tense. It's the one who takes what he has in his hands to serve his master right now. It's the one who doesn't wait until tomorrow to do what he should be doing today. Let's talk a bit about your neighborhood. To say that the campus is a spiritually needy place is a gross understatement. In a recent survey of 112,000 freshmen, a common theme emerged. It was called a pluralistic worldview. And simply put, what that means is that freshmen feel free to create their own personalized religion. Something here from the Dalai Lama, something here from J.K. Rowling, and maybe a dash of Jesus thrown in for good measure. Every day, you see fellow students walking about in spiritual confusion. Every day, you see them making soul-damaging mistakes. And every day, you either take a step into their lostness or a step away. Now, there is some good news in the freshman survey. 80% say that they are, quote, interested in spirituality. Okay, that's real fuzzy and soft, but it is an opening. And as Jesus reminds us, we are to have compassion on them because they are like sheep without a shepherd. I have 4 campus stories to tell. Each involves a Christian who shares the good news with a fellow student. And that second then is so transformed by the gospel that over time it impacts many others. Each story I'm going to tell is from the United States because that's where I live. But they could just as easily be from Canada, the Caribbean, or any other nation. I'm going to start with the most recent story and go back in time. Story number 1, the University of Houston, 2009. Do we have any Cougars out there? When Walter came to the U of H 4 years ago, he quickly joined the university chapter. We have friends of Walter in the back. As Walter's faith grew, so did his leadership responsibilities. In the fall of 2008, he applied for and was hired as a peer leader in a freshman dorm. And in that role, he met Festus and Zach, 2 non-Christian guys on his floor. Festus came to the United States from my journey when he was 16 years old. And when Walter invited him to the chapter's large group, Festus was curious enough to come. What he found was a Christian community that wholly embraced him. And at a conference late that fall, he decided to become a follower of Jesus. And as Festus grew in his faith, his friend Zach noticed that something was different. Festus was calmer and more caring. Zach had partied hard. I talked to him. It was okay to say this, partying hard during his first term, and he was looking for some changes in his own life. Now, to get Zach to a large group meeting, Festus vaguely asked him to meet at a certain building for 5 minutes. Well, instead of the one-on-one time that Zach had expected, Festus met him outside the large group meeting room. And 2 hours later, Zach emerged deeply touched by the worship and the message. That night launched a spiritual journey that culminated in February of this year when he too became a Christian. Zach is now a sophomore. He serves on the chapter's evangelism team and is a regular volunteer at Montrose Outreach. That's a ministry to homeless, to prostitutes, and transvestites in Houston. And as he looks over the past year, he says, following Christ is the best decision I have ever made. I'm so thankful that Walter reached out to Festus and that Festus tricked me into coming to large group. A little bit of holy deception, right? Then he says, I'm a new person. Walter graduates next May with a degree of engineering, and Festus continues to share the good news with whomever will listen on campus. Story number 2, University of Nevada, Reno, 2001. Estelle grew up in Fallon, Nevada, a town of 7,000 people. It's located on Route 50, which I looked it up. It's nicknamed, and I'm not kidding, the loneliest road in America. I mean, this place is really isolated. At the end of her freshman year, Estelle discerned that her call as a missional Christian was to live in dorms so that she could have maximum contact with non-Christians. She did this for each of the next 4 years. During her sophomore year, she heard someone playing the piano in the common area on her floor. And before even to check out who the person was, she literally danced into the room. The pianist turned out to be a Japanese student she had never met before named Takuya. Over the next 8 months, he became in her Bible study and even played in the large chapter's worship band. His motive, he simply wanted to learn English and have more American friends. But as he looks back now, he says, God was working on me. This was the first time I really faced him, and I was confused. When the message began to penetrate his soul, Takuya pulled away. But at Estella's urging, he agreed to come to a weekend conference. All of a sudden, he now recalls, it made sense to me. Something was resolved in my heart. He returned to campus as a disciple of Jesus. And in time, he started his own Bible study, through which 2 Japanese friends came to the Lord. Today, it gets better. Today, 8 years later, that Bible study continues under new leadership and serves 50-plus international students. After he graduated, Takuya returned to Tokyo, where he became a lay leader in a newly planted church. Today, that fledgling church has grown to 800, making it one of the largest in the country. 20 new believers are being baptized every month. The church is also in the process of planting new churches in Osaka and Hong Kong. Professionally, Takuya works for a well-known global consulting company. Every day he posts a scripture verse on his desk. Coworkers often ask him about it, so much so that he invites them to church. And recently, one man in the next office became a Christian. In his spare time, you wonder what this guy doesn't do. In his spare time, Takuya also leads a Bible study at a local university with our sister movement. And Estelle, she's now living in Arizona, pursuing a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. She continues to look for ways to share her faith.